Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is about 5 seconds since Inter Miami's 1-1 draw against Toronto FC. I think there was some real positives, some disappointments in this game. Saur, my co-host, my friend, how did you feel about the game?
My biggest takeaway from that game was Taylor Twellman telling me how Toronto could have scored 3 or 4 goals and they missed out on so many. As always, that should be on our bingo card.
Maybe I should preface, hold on. Maybe I should preface this entire episode. This is our raw reaction. It is all emotion. How did you feel? A little analysis sprinkled in, but really we just want to interact with you guys and either have some group therapy after what I think is a disappointing 1-1 draw, although incredibly predictable. So you guys will guide us. Please get in the chat and tell us what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and we'll talk about it. Sorry for interrupting you, but I did want to put that out there. Raw reaction. Let's hear what you guys think.
I think it was predictable. As you said, we called it that this was going to be one of those games where MLS does an MLS and Inter Miami is going to struggle to beat the bottommost team in the league. And that's exactly what happened. I thought it was a much more exciting game than I would have given it credit for before. Of course, Toronto had a few good moments. Inter Miami from the 50th to the 85th minute absolutely dominated. I'm not sure how we didn't score. Suarez had a few chances. Abondo had a few chances. Messi had a couple of goals chalked off. Overall, we created opportunities. In defense, we looked a little bit leaky, but I know why. So I understand the reason of why we were a little bit defensively weak and got caught in transition. You mentioned a few positives, and I want to focus on that. But I'll be remiss in saying that I think we're going to struggle against LAFC. We will win that game, but I'm not sure if this team has
let's not
but
make this about LAFC.
That's my reaction. I think that game went well. Disappointing not to have won it because we definitely had the chances.
It definitely feels like we're going to look back in a month and say, how did we lose to this Toronto? Not lose. How did we drop points to this Toronto team?
Feels like a loss.
It does, because Inter Miami was the better team throughout, and Toronto did have, I think, 3, 4, 5 dangerous moments where they certainly could have scored more goals. We can talk about why that was, but Inter Miami, for the large majority of the game, controlled possession, controlled the play, controlled the state of the game, and did what they wanted to do, created plenty of opportunities. I thought Messi looked really good in this game. I thought Talasco Segovia looked really good in this game. I thought there was a couple disappointing performances in terms of finishing in the final third. You mentioned Suarez, you mentioned Alan Obando. I thought Fafa Bico had a couple chances that if he could put on target or was a little quicker with in one instance, we could have got another goal. So, and then not all of that to add, Inter Miami does have 2 goals taken off the board because of one being slightly offside earlier on in the play, one with a late foul from Messi to nullify that one. So they did put the ball in the back of the net 3 times. I thought there was some positive performances. I think, considering how this game feels more like a tune-up game for Wednesday, I'm okay with the result. I think it would have been okay with a 1-1 result if you told me this morning. It is disappointing, though, because it was there to be had. I did think the last 15 minutes were kind of disappointing. They didn't. You mentioned from the 50th to the 80th minute, they were really good, and I thought that was true. And they kind of died a little bit in those last 10, 15 minutes, starting with around the 80th minute. They did not create as much. A couple opportunities balls that Messi put into the box, one on a set piece, one at the very end there that Fafa couldn't put on target. But aside from that, Toronto did a good job of killing off this game, I thought, and even creating a couple chances in stoppage time for themselves. Any other thoughts, or should we get to the chat and let them guide us now?
No, I've been going through the chat as you've been reading us through, and it's a little bit more negative than I thought it would be. I want to say, you mentioned that we would be okay with the draw. All depends on Wednesday. If we win on Wednesday and if we progress, we'll be fine. This is just another blip in the longer journey that we have to go through. If we lose on Wednesday, it's going to be a bit of a dire situation, and I think that's when the flags are going to come out of why Inter Miami is struggling to score goals. I do think not having Tadeo Allende has really upset the balance up front, and I don't know how we fix that. I can see us creating opportunities, but it's just struggling. I'm struggling to figure out why in 2 consecutive games we've not been able to break down opposition that well.
This was significantly different, though. Like in the
Yeah.
LAFC game, they weren't creating opportunities. In this game, they had 10, 12, 14 opportunities to score goals.
Absolutely.
Couldn't convert. So this I'm much happier with. I think if they do the same thing on Wednesday, I think they'll be fine. I will say there's a reason it was so much easier in this game, and that's because Toronto is not a good team. By MLS standards, they're one of the worst. Now, it is also true that guys play their best when they play Inter Miami, and that's what it felt like from Bernadeschi in this game. But let's get to the chat. Janet says at halftime, she writes, how many goals this ref gonna annul? I mean, we really could have been up 3-1 at halftime.
Yeah, but I think they were fairly called off.
I agree, but it is sad. And also, though, I do think we got the momentum from the goals, even if they didn't count. Talasco Segovia from that goal onward, or that got called off, he still played really, really well. And I thought he even took a step up. And then Messi, after the first goal got taken off the board, I thought he was like, I have to get a goal in this game. And so he was just dying for that goal early or late in the first half. Gabriella says we are losing on Wednesday. Do you think any Inter Miami fan should think that we're going to lose the game on Wednesday, or is it just like maybe we don't do enough to overcome the first leg? Like, I think Inter Miami is going to win the game on Wednesday. I'm very confident about that. I just think there's like a chance that Inter Miami is up 2-0 and LAFC gets a goal late to send themselves through. So I'm not actually worried about LAFC coming out and playing really well and winning the game. It's just a matter of can Inter Miami do enough to overcome the first game. And this game doesn't change my opinion on that.
For some reason, my mind is stuck on how LAFC has an away goal, but they don't really. So
they don't.
I just keep thinking that it's going to be hard. But I agree with you. Well, I think we're going to do enough to win the game, but I don't think it's going to be hard to overturn that 1-goal deficit from the first game. We'll see. I don't want to get too down and out so early. It is going to be very difficult, though.
Michael says, pathetic draw. What a bunch of clowns. It felt like there was a lot of good performances, actually.
I agree. I think it was a good game.
I only feel like 2 players were below par, and I'm sure we'll talk about them as we get through the chats, but it was, I thought, a very good game from almost everyone. David says IMCF's offense is stagnant. Again, same thing as we just talked about. I really do think this was a much better game from a chance creation perspective. They just couldn't put the ball in the net. And actually, they did put the ball in the back of the net a couple of times. It's just not in the run of play.
Segovia was phenomenal in making sure that our offense wasn't stagnant. He was everywhere. And I think this was the performance I needed from him to just realize on my own that Segovia is an absolute baller of a player, because he was everywhere in those first 60 minutes that he played, because he came in playing more centrally, and I thought his link-up play, his movement off the ball was exactly what we needed. And I do think Mascherano sort of treated this as a blueprint against LAFC and what we want to do on Wednesday, because I think Segovia was so much more effective coming in, sitting slightly deeper in the center and actually affecting play from the middle, and just making sure that we're making the right link-up plays for Messi. And I didn't think it was stagnant. It was definitely stagnant against LAFC, but today I thought we just struggled to convert our chances and put the ball in the back of the net. And when we did, it got chalked off for some reason or another.
Yeah, I agree. SD says Messi was denied a legit goal, but he also says the defense was shaky with Gonzalo Lujan. He was one of the 2 players I was sort of referencing earlier. I thought I'm a little worried about him now, I'll be honest with you. Back-to-back games where he feels like he's not physically capable of defending quick wingers. And if you're going to play at right back, you're going to have to do that. And if you're going to play at left-sided center back for Inter Miami, when Jordi Alba's on the field, you're also going to have to do that. And so it almost feels like he has to be protected in that single right-sided center back role, which is also where Toto Aviles plays best. It's also where Maxi Falcone plays best. Makes me a little nervous about Gonzalo Lujan this year, if I'm being honest with you.
I'm not too bothered, because we have 4 other players in front of him who can do a job. And if his role is coming in and actually filling in for them in games like these, I'm okay. We've gone from a situation where we had Christoph and Nico Freire, and I think he's a step up from both of them.
I
do think his better positioning is right center back. So maybe Mascherano needs to put him in a position to succeed. But if he has to come in and deputize from game to game, I'm okay with that. Do not play him in the right back role against LAFC because that's not going to win you games.
I'll be honest, he looks a lot like Serhii Christoph to me. I'll be honest. So take that for what you will. And again, I'm not saying I'm worried about Inter Miami. I'm worried about Gonzalo Lujan being an impactful player for us. And maybe you're right. Maybe that is his role. Angel says, get our confidence up, they said. It is now in hindsight disappointing that we started Messi and played him 90 minutes and Suarez 70 and all of that. And not get
I'm glad I didn't call a 7-2. I'm so glad.
David says there's no way we scored 2 goals on LAFC with this dysfunctional offense. I guess I am worried that this happened because they played a poor team and not because they were just magically fixed. Now, maybe it was a get-right game. Again, Tosca Segovia, I thought, played really well. Messi played really well. I think Suarez really could use a ball hitting the back of the net, but I mean, Fafa Picault as well. So it's just one of those games, I think. Miami King says, defense is terrible. I thought it was just Gonzalo Lujan, honestly.
I agree with you. And it was a very simple issue. Jordi Alba too far up the pitch. There was a gulf of where Gonzalo Lujan was supposed to cover, and he was just got in no man's land so many times. And Bernardeschi constantly was able to find that space and affect the game from there. It was very simple. If Noah Allen was there, I think he would have covered for Jordi Alba a lot better, and it would have fixed the transition issues. Aviles was great. I didn't think he put a foot wrong. We had a recovery from the midfield time in again to stop Toronto from actually making a play. So overall, I thought the defense was fine, but you could genuinely see what the issue was, and it was on the left back side with Jordi Alba pushing too far up, and then Gonzalo Lujan struggling to keep up with the pace of the Toronto attack.
Yeah, I also think Yannick Bright not being in the midfield makes the team
absolutely
defensively. So,
and as soon as he came on, it was a whole other ball play.
And that's not a shot on Federico Redondo, who I thought played really well today. I thought he played really well, and same with Sergio.
I thought he played really well for 50 minutes. Sorry to cut you off there, but I thought he played really well for 50 minutes. But then he sort of gave away a couple of poor balls, and I was like, oof, that's going to be an issue. But then he was okay. Like, I thought he had a good game.
His passing range was more expansive than I think we've seen in a while. It feels like as he's sort of lost minutes to Yannick Bright over the last year, he's felt like a little less expressive with his game. And so it was nice to see him putting balls over the top, trying to break lines, stuff like that. Miami King says Obando not good. Hope he picks it up later. Alan Obando debut. He was the second player I was mentioning is not having particularly impressive debut. He looks like he's going to be a threat on set pieces. He had the golden opportunity where he clearly saw glory and it messed him up. But what do you think of Obando on his debut?
I'm not going to have an overreaction in it. I thought it was fine. Obviously, didn't necessarily have too much to do, barring that first touch that he took and almost had an opportunity to score. If that had gone in, that would have been an absolute debut of a bowling debut. But unfortunately, he fluffed his lines. He's 18. He hasn't played in 2 months, I think. And this was his first going out. And playing for Inter Miami is never easy. So I can understand nervousness might be there, but he'll be fine. I think he looks like a really good player who's going to come on in the last 10 minutes of the game and going to be a threat from set pieces and a target man to put the ball into. I'm not sure how he's going to be used, whether it's with Suarez or without Suarez, but either ways, I think he definitely offers something different, and I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I agree he's going to be fine. I think it was a nice reminder that he is 18 and he's played 500 professional minutes. And if you expect the full product from him, you're expecting too much. He does look like he's got a little bit of a hold-up game to him. And once he adjusts to the physicality of the league, I think that'll come. He looks like he's going to be a threat on set pieces. He is tall, but he also feels like he has a little bit of an instinct in there. He looked like he was, getting close to finding the right ball. So we'll see. I think there's plenty to like about him, but you're right. There was a glorious moment for him in there, and he didn't quite make it happen.
And can I just say, now that we're on the Obando track right now, he's 18. He's played 500 professional minutes. I urge Inter Miami fans to just be patient with him and do not jump to conclusions, because he's not an Mbappe. He's not a Haaland who's going to go out there and absolutely light your world on fire. You have to be patient with him. You have to give him time to adjust. And if he doesn't score for the next 5, 6 games, that's okay. It's okay for an 18-year-old player to come into this league and take his time to adjust. Don't bunch the overall poor performance that we may have had today and Obondo's performance, because he's a player who's just played his first minutes for Inter Miami, and first minutes in a very long time, and it's going to take time for him to adapt. So give him time and just be patient with him. That's all I want to say, because we tend to jump to conclusions with these youngsters very quickly, and not everyone has that world-beating attribute immediately.
Carlos says it was unacceptable to only convert one goal against TFC at home. I just don't get it. Why can't we finish? Definitely need to simplify the attack, says Ash. Taran says, I have no hope for Wednesday. And by the way, how did Suarez miss that chance? By the way, Suarez was offside, so that goal wouldn't have counted even if he did put it in the back of the net. It feels like there's a lot more negativity from the chat.
I told you.
From other guys than we have, and maybe that's justified. Maybe let's go down that world a little bit, because this is now a team all of a sudden that went from winning 7 out of 8, or I guess 8 out of 9, to we've gotten 1 point from our last 2 games going into the most important game of the season. You would hate for this to become 1 point from 3 games. It is as bad of vibes as it's been in 2025.
We're so spoiled as Inter Miami fans. We've just played a team that hasn't won in 205 days. And yes, we should have beaten him. But I want to correct you there. We've got 1 point from 1 game. That game against LAFC was not points based. So technically it was a tournament game. I don't want to overreact. It will happen. Lulls will happen. This is only 2 games. And everything, the feeling, the vibes could completely change if we win against LAFC on Wednesday. I don't want to have an overreaction before that game. But I understand why there's negativity around this team, because 2 performances back-to-back have not necessarily yielded the results that we're so used to. And one of them was against the bottom-feeding team in the MLS right now. So it's understandable, and I can see where the fans are coming from. I think the crisis will truly start if we get knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But until then, we just have to contextualize this a little bit. We only lost to LAFC by 1 goal. That's fine, away from home. We started that pre-game show by saying it's really hard to win away from home. There's still a chance, there's still hope for us to turn that deficit around. And this game, we didn't lose. That's a poor statement to make against this Toronto side. But I thought we did enough to win, but just missed that final finish and product in the final third. And in fact, when we did get the ball in, it just got chalked off for one reason or another. So you can contextualize all these issues. I would have been more worried if this game had gone with us being completely clueless and not making those opportunities. So
yeah, I'm with you.
We'll see.
Natalia says, you both wanted Mascherano to play the second team. Where would we have been if he had? Did you feel like this team wasn't prepared in terms of like the whole depth of the roster to play in this game? It didn't feel like there was a single player in Inter Miami's roster that couldn't fit in. In fact, I genuinely think Santi Morales is close to number 28 or 6 or 7 or 8 on terms of where he belongs on this roster. And here he is in the final minutes trying to help the team win. I did think that was a weird sub, actually, now that I think about it, with Kramaski on the bench. But that is okay. Well, I'll have to think about that for a second. What did you think about that, though?
I mean, Cello came on at halftime. Fafa came on at halftime. I think we had plenty of opportunities to kill this game, and I think it would have been similar if we had our second string team play. Maybe without Messi, it would have been slightly more difficult to get that result, perhaps. But overall, I thought we were more than prepared to win this game. It just didn't come through. Our final finish was not there, and it happens sometimes.
Gabriella says, I wonder if Cello starts next game. If so, I'm worried. I thought he was good. I thought he was good in this game.
I thought he was fine, but I still don't think he's Ian Frey.
I agree. And I also think we have to remind ourselves that Toronto's not a particularly good team. But I thought he was good in this game. PVO says any view on Suarez performance today? I'll let you take that one first.
Don't get me down that rabbit hole again. I thought he was better than what he did against LAFC for sure. He had a couple of good opportunities, had some good passes into the final third that created opportunities. But you mentioned this earlier. He needs a goal. He really needs a goal. When was the last time he scored? I don't even remember. But he's struggling.
It's probably been like 2 games.
And yeah, probably 2 games, but still. It just feels like he's struggling a little bit and getting frustrated. But it's Suarez, man. He just comes on and then scores 3 goals and we'll be fine. But I didn't think he had a particularly good game today.
Suarez' last goal was actually 5 games ago on the road at Cavaliers. So it has been a little bit of a time. Adar says, apart from Messi, everyone deserves bashing. I feel like that's not the case. There was a lot of really good performances, positive performances. Now, again, I don't think Toronto's that good, so keep that in mind. But I thought it was fine. As far as Suarez, listen, he was better than Obando when he came on. He didn't get a goal today. He needs to get back in rhythm. I think Messi really wanted and needed to see the back of the net, which is not something I'd ever thought I'd say, but he was pushing really hard for that goal. And I think once he got it, his game opened up a little bit more. Suarez, I think, needs the same thing. He just needs to find the back of the net so he can get going. David says you're playing Fafa and Taylor out of position to play Segovia and Alba. For what reason exactly? Play Segovia with Alba. Put him on the other side for more space. David, I've been saying this since the first game of the season. Do you agree, Saur?
Yes, but today it actually worked out. I thought Segovia looked a lot better playing centrally and allowing Alba up top. But that actually came with the jeopardy in the defense because Lujan was left in no man's land with so much space to defend. I agree. I think Segovia needs to play on the right-hand side and then put Fafa or Taylor on the left-hand side. But I thought Segovia did exactly what he was supposed to do today and was a lot more involved in this game than he has been over the last 3 games.
Do you think Inter Miami should have been up at halftime? I know they had the 2 goals chalked off, but it still felt like they were creating plenty of opportunities. It felt like in the first 28 minutes or so, they should have had a goal or they were good for a goal. I don't think there was any moment in this game where it felt like Toronto had sustained quality on the ball. They had a couple moments in transition that got sloppy from Inter Miami. And we talked about the lack of Yannick Bray in the midfield. We talked about Gonzalo Lujan. Drake Callender hasn't been mentioned yet. What do you think of Callender today?
I think he was okay. I don't think he did enough to justify him starting the next game over Astari if Astari's fit. He was a little bit nervous on a couple of balls coming into the box. He didn't command the box well, and I wish he had done that. His distribution was fine. Overall, I thought an above-average performance from him, nothing world-beating as such.
Especially in the first half, he was on the ball a lot. And yeah, I want to look back at some of the chances that Toronto created, and specifically about his positioning, but had a couple saves. The goal that Toronto did score from Bernadeschi, that was just incredible skill from Bernadeschi inside the box. But you know what it reminded me of like a basketball player dribbling through the lane, but you obviously have more control over what you can do because you're bouncing the ball with your hands. But that's sort of how it felt to me. Anybody else that really stood out to you in this game that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think for me, Segovia and Messi were the 2 of the best players on the pitch. And then the rest were fine. Yannick Bright came on. I thought he looked fantastic. Again, he seems to have really leveled up. Redondo, I thought, had a really good game overall. Alba and Suarez need to get their bearings right because it feels like they're not really in the same rhythm as last year. And that's probably hurting our output a little bit. And I hope that changes against LAFC. I don't know if we deserve to go up in the first half. I thought, and going into that halftime 1-1 was probably the right reflection of how the game was playing out. But in the second half, I thought we did more than enough to win this game. It was just unfortunate that we weren't able to actually get the final ball and the final third delivery and output the way we usually do. It's not ideal going into such a big game on Wednesday, but overall, it's fine. As long as we win that game against LAFC and win by the margin that we need to, all of this will be forgotten. Almost feels like we're back at the Monterrey discussion now, aren't we? This was a very similar conversation that we had during the Monterrey game.
Certainly, we'll be having a conversation titled "Soul Searching" if they don't win on Wednesday. Luis says Mascherano strictly lost this game. Obando, Fafa had a bad game. I would have rather seen Benha over Morales. I actually agree. I am, now that I think about it, a little surprised that Santi got in over Benha. It felt like Mascherano made substitutions as if he thought this team was going to walk through with a win, which makes me go back to, why didn't we just start this way? And then you could have brought the big guns off the bench to help you win the game late if you needed it. But I don't know. How'd you feel about Mascherano in this game?
Yeah, I didn't realize that Benjamin Kramaski didn't actually come on and Santi Morales came on before him. So I agree. I think he should have brought on Benjamin Kramaski if he actually wanted to change the game. It almost felt like a lot of his decision-making was based on one eye to the LAFC game, which is understandable. Of course, Ian Frey coming off 45 minutes, I would assume he's going to get the full 90 against LAFC on Wednesday.
I would too.
Taylor coming off makes me think perhaps he's actually going to get a run out on Wednesday as well, which would be interesting. And then, of course, bringing on Abondo when he did, bringing on Santi Morales, understandable decisions, absolutely, especially with that Suarez decision to bring him off at 70th minute. The Messi one was a little bit interesting. I would have almost thought he would bring Messi off, and maybe Santi Morales coming on for Messi would have made a little bit more sense. But Benha staying on the bench was a little bit of an interesting one, and Messi going the full 90 was a bit of an interesting one. So it almost looked like he was making those decisions based on the Wednesday game, but the Messi decision was interesting.
Nader says, you really need to question this team and their ambitions to win everything. They're playing all their starters majority of the match 3 days from now. They get LAFC and need at least 2 goals. Do you think this game is going to affect them? Because I actually think they're going to be fine.
I think they're going to be fine. They're professionals. They're used to playing those two, the weekday schedule. So I think they should be okay.
Apparently, the Arabic commentator said Obando's 18, but he runs like he's 40. He's not particularly fast, but that's not, I mean, we knew that coming in. He just is one finish away from, I think, winning over the fan base.
Absolutely.
Luis says, and again, the entire team is waiting for Messi to score. It felt in this game like Messi took a step back in the last 25 minutes and said, let me put some balls into the box. And it did create some real opportunities, and yet nobody was there to put the ball in the back of the net. So I don't know, where do we land on that?
Messi as a creator is better than Messi as a goal scorer, or vice versa. Either ways, it's the best. Yeah, I'm just a bit worried how we had to rely on him to actually pull us out and get that goal. I thought he played really well, actually. Of course, we gave him man of the match, but I genuinely thought he had a fantastic performance. And on any other day, he could have got 3 or 4 goals easily. His dribbling was great. When that first goal chalked off, he looked like a whole other person on a mission because he just wanted to get that goal, kept dribbling into the players, kept coming out with the ball. I thought he had a fantastic performance. Unfortunate that he wasn't able to get an assist or 2. We'll see. Hopefully that changes against LAFC.
Yeah, Miami King says, seems Frey got injured. He did have a moment in the first half where he kind of kicks the ball out of bounds. He holds his hamstring for a second, but I believe it was in like the 22nd minute or 23rd minute. So, and he finishes the half. I do think there was the plan to get Chelo Weekend really a good amount of minutes in this game. And clearly at halftime, he comes in. I think Ian Frey is going to be fine and ready to go and play 90 minutes if it's appropriate on Wednesday night. That didn't feel like something that was going to hold them back going forward. Jay says the counters are too slow. It's easy for the defense because they have time to regroup and they know that it's going to go through Messi. It's too predictable. I've always thought Inter Miami was a very good, in this era, very good transition team. In fact, underrated in how well they can transition. But a lot of that is because when they create a chance, they are so clinical in front of goal. With Suarez not having scored a goal from the run of play in a relatively long streak for him now, maybe that dies out a little bit. Julian Gressel, a good player. I'm going to stop mentioning him, but it feels like maybe in transition without Tadeo Allende, they haven't quite figured out what they want to be. Fafa misses a couple chances in this game. Talasco Segovia, that's not really his MO. Are you worried about them in transition?
I don't think so. That's not really our MO, but having Tadeo Allende in absolutely changes the outlook of this attack. And we're really missing him right now. I really hope he's able to come back against LAFC, because his ability to make those runs in behind defenses is going to be absolutely vital against LAFC, even though they're going to be in a low block. And he can take players on and he can run, and he just offers this really interesting outlet that I don't think Taylor or Fafa Pico offer. We also do take our time on the ball, which slows down the transition, and it's not ideal when you don't have runners like Tadeo Allende on the pitch. But that's all I have to say about it. I think sometimes when our transition comes across, it's absolutely blistering fast, and when we score, we can score really quickly. It just so happens that today we didn't actually get those opportunities and didn't put the ball in the back of the net. But honestly, if we'd converted a couple of chances that we had, this would be a completely different conversation. So I don't think that's an issue.
As Thomas says in the chat, 2.8 XG. Any guesses for how many shots Inter Miami had today?
I want to say around 12.
23.
Oh,
any idea of how much what percentage of possession they had?
65.
67. So 67% possession, almost 3 XG, 23 shots on goal, 7 saves out of Sean Johnson. I mean, they really were doing what they needed to be doing.
Exactly.
If they repeat that performance on Wednesday, you would expect them to put the ball in the back of the net 3 times. So again, there's a lot of negativity, and granted, Toronto is not as good as LAFC. It will be harder to repeat this against LAFC, but I don't think this needs to carry over into Wednesday night. I thought they played well, especially maybe a little lack of clinical finishing from a couple players. Fafa, one from Suarez. Obviously, Alan Obando had a golden opportunity, but aside from that, I think the team was doing what it needed to do to create the opportunities, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, and I think there was some issues in the transition, but we know that's going to get fixed on Wednesday with Yannick Bright coming in and Noah Allen and Maxi Falcone, obviously. Yeah, exactly, defensively. And then the issues that we have in attack, I don't necessarily think the issues. On any other day, we score 5 goals in this game. And yes, we maybe concede a couple of goals, but I think we did more than enough to actually win this game, and more than enough to score multiple goals. You will have those days where you don't score a few. And I feel like it's almost the hangover of that game against LAFC that's being carried on into this game. That's why we have such a negative reaction. But I do want to separate the two games. This was very different from what we saw in the midweek. This was a lot more dynamic, a lot more quick, fast-paced, and well-constructed patterns of play that just needed a finish and a bow tie to put everything together, but it didn't come off. And I can understand it can be rationalized, and that's about it. I don't want to be too negative with this performance. I thought we played really well, and unfortunate that we weren't able to get the 3 points.
Ash says Santi Morales is a natural, and I get that we are questioning about whether it should have been Kramaski, but he did have some nice through balls. Like he's got something to him. He also got bodied off the ball by Federico Bernardeschi at one point, and you can see like that's it. He needs to be a little bit more physical, grow up a little bit. But the skill, the vision, the short area burst, like he's got some real tools to him. It is nice, on a grand scale type of thing. It is nice to see Javier Mascherano give him minutes and believe in him. In a way, listen, Leo Alfonso wasn't on the bench, and Tyler Hall and Israel Boatwright, they're not here, but Santi Morales is, because he has impressed Javier Mascherano. Any thoughts on Santi?
Yeah, and to your point about him actually being bodied off by Bernardeschi, on that same play, he ran all the way back to try and win the ball, and then Yannick Bright helped him get the ball back. So you can see that he works really hard, and there's a player there. He's got the skills, he's got the talent, and I think give him a couple of years, if he builds up his physical profile, if he continues to work hard the way he is, he's definitely going to be a very interesting player for this team. And I'm looking forward to seeing his development, and glad that he got some minutes tonight.
Miami King says Drake seems that he has a better foot. He was on the ball a lot today. He didn't have the spectacular save. Like I don't think the goalkeeper controversy that we were talking about as being a potential option, that's not what this was. But for his first game of the season, I thought he played fine. And again, compared to what we were seeing with Rocco, I mean, it's just night and day. So good performance from Jake, especially as the number 2.
And I think he looked a little bit more nervous commanding the box than actually playing out from the back. He had a really nice ball into Ian Frey once that actually opened up the play a little bit. And he looked good with the ball at his feet. And he did more than enough to have a really good game. On any other day, we would say, if he was the starting goalkeeper, we'd say he's had a good game. It just so happens that he's now competing for a spot. So I don't think he did enough to justify
I agree.
that number one spot yet. But he had a decent game. No complaints from Drake Callender.
Syed says, I think Obando should be given a chance against LAFC over Suarez. And before I let you comment on that, I do think it's probably worth spending some time in the next 24 hours looking at Suarez's form over the last couple of games, because as we're talking about this, I'm going back and looking at his goal scoring output, and it feels like it has been a little bit of a drop off in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. And if you're not getting the goals from Suarez, you do wonder. Now, from what I saw from Obando, I'm not sure that he's going to be like a pressing merchant or anything. And obviously Suarez is going to play on Wednesday, but I don't know. I didn't feel like Obando was going to come in. Like, he didn't feel like he was ready for the moment, and nerves and 18 and all that stuff. So, maybe he'll be much better on, next weekend. But I think Suarez, you kind of have to wait until he's right. And if he's not right and it costs you, you kind of have to live with that, because we did trade Leo Campana.
You have to absolutely start Suarez on Wednesday. Abondo is not ready. You saw that today. He's still getting up to speed. Obviously, he's not there yet, whether it's physically or whether it's technique-wise. On the bench, for sure. And if Suarez doesn't have a game, if he's dropping a stinker, hook him at 65th minute. Don't keep him on till 90th minute. Be brave in making those decisions, but you have to start him just because of the player that he is. He can score in the blink of an eye, and that's what you need against LAFC. Hopefully he has a good game on Wednesday, but I would 100% start Suarez as the number 9.
Ash says we're having a clean sheet against LAFC on Wednesday. That's probably the biggest reason why Drake Callender can't start, because when he starts, Inter Miami refuses to help him get a clean sheet. And it's most of the time it's not on Drake. So, but it's just, it is how it goes. Anton says, would have loved to see Taylor and Segovia switched. I agree. This is something I've been saying since week 1. I just want to see it once. I'm a little disappointed we didn't see Segovia move around the pitch more in terms of his positioning, like his position within the structure. But I did think he had a good game in terms of finding the space. And he's so good on the ball. Like, the skill is so obvious that it's only when he disappears from the game, because he's not finding those spaces, where you get frustrated with him. But aside from that, I think he's excellent.
Absolutely.
What do you think about Robert Taylor?
I thought he had a good game. I was surprised that he came off at halftime, because he was linking up well, and I would have seen him at least go at 65 minutes, if not more than that. But I thought he was fine. I do think we're missing Allende, though, because Allende is better than both of them.
And he's also more of a goal threat. Like, yeah. I get Fafa and Robert Taylor both have goals in them, and it's not like you're playing I don't know, Nico Stefanelli or something like that. But Tadeo Allende is another level, no doubt about it. MR, and I appreciate this chat, by the way. He says, can I just say you guys are too nice, because you don't understand that at Inter Miami, we have expectations, and how the game went is the issue, not the 1-1 result. And then he goes on and says, the way you speak is like a mom sending their child to kindergarten and allowing for such mistakes. Like I said, the how it played out with poor last 10-minute urgency was the issue, sadly. I appreciate this comment because A, it was kind of funny, but B, it is totally cool to have different opinion than us. We're just here to give our opinion. And one of the reasons we like doing the raw reactions, because we want to hear from you guys. And I do think you make a great point here. The urgency in the last 10 minutes did not feel like it was there. And that's something we can totally agree on. That was the biggest disappointment for me in the day.
Yeah, and I feel like right now we're in the rationalization mode, where we're trying to understand why this performance happened the way it did happen. There were some positives, but there were also some negatives, and I would club that last 10-minute performance where we allowed Toronto to get on top of us as a negative, for sure. Again, if Wednesday comes and we actually blow LAFC out of the water, this entire conversation will be completely different. And if we end up losing, then this entire conversation will be a lot more dire and disappointing. So I feel like right now, emotionally, I'm in the rationalization phase where I'm like, okay, I can understand this performance. I think there's positives to build on this. Let's hope we see that against LAFC.
There's a lot of chat about rotation. I feel like that's a conversation we can have with more clarity on Thursday, if we have to. And either way, it'll either be, it didn't matter at all, or it'll be, this is like the big flaw with Javier Mascherano right now. Luis says Baltasar is a player we need now. He's actually a bigger and faster version of Facundo. I'm assuming that means Facundo Farias. Baltasar, we're ready for him. We got the graphics all made up. We just need his jersey number. We're ready for it. I still think we're not going to get him for another week and a half. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's not available until that April 19th game, just because of how everything's gone and that Alan Obando had to go through a similar process. You think Baltasar makes a difference in this game?
I haven't seen him play enough to understand how he fits into Miami's style and what role he'll be given. So I don't want to make an assumption there. So no, I don't think he would have made a difference.
Miami King says the issue is too reliant on Messi. There's no dynamics. With Messi on the pitch, the team must have other players to run. Barca and Argentina do the same. That's why they are superb. That's why they are a superb team. It did feel today was much better. Last week in the midweek game, we talked about it. Off the ball running and off the ball movement was really felt poor. But this was much better, I thought. And again, I think the stats bear that out. I get that the last few minutes were frustrating, but 24 shots, right? Almost 3 XG, 10 corners. Like they were doing the things they needed to do to create goals. And then the goals just didn't come or they were called off.
Yeah, I think we were dynamic enough. We were creating those opportunities and we were very fluid in the final third. We just didn't finish our chances. And that's the issue. One thing I will say, though, I've noticed that every time we're outside the box, Messi gets the ball. And even when players are in space and have the chance to shoot, like Segovia or Robert Taylor or Fafa Pico, they bounce it off to Messi. Now, I understand if that's Yannick Bright or Federico Redondo, Sergio Busquets, give the ball to Messi. But if you're Segovia, who has a good shot on him, take some from outside the box as well. I saw Aviles take one from outside the box and had a good chance. Jordi Alba obviously is fantastic at that. But I want to see the players take a little bit more initiative in trying to score the goal themselves rather than always pin the ball off to Messi and then wait for him to do everything. So that's one thing I will say that we definitely need to improve upon.
Jeffrey says it feels a little like last year when we were going into game 3 against Atlanta. I've had that thought. I had that thought last on Thursday. I don't feel that way right now, but I did have that thought last Thursday.
You know why?
Luis, yeah, go ahead.
Yannick Bright.
Yannick Bright's back, and also this team is better. It is more dynamic. Like we are losing hope after a couple bad results, but this is still a phenomenal team, and we have to just hope that the talent rises through and the big moments go our way. I think that's even the biggest thing is if the big moments don't go your way, it doesn't really matter how well you play. That was sort of the result today, and when you have the best players, they normally do go your way. So when they don't, it feels extra jarring. But you just got to have faith that they'll come on Wednesday. I guess last one, Gressel says, Luis says Gressel, I think, will be sent out after the game next week for Cam, for allocation money. That allocation money will go to Alba to free up a DP. Hello, Pogba. I don't think Pogba is going to be the DP they go for if they do go for one. I don't think we're going to get one this spring. But anyways, that's it, Saur. A little bit of negativity from the Inter Miami fan base, and I think fair. I think it's fair. And I think if you feel that way, that's justified. It was a disappointing game against a team that we should have beaten handily. And I think if we played this game without the looming sense of the CONCACAF Champions Cup run on both sides of this, we would be very frustrated we didn't get 3 points, but we also would have done more and gone full out to get 3 points. I think we would have if that happened. So on the one hand, I'm feeling like it was there for us if we went 100% for it, but we didn't go 100% for it because we wanted to make sure we were ready to go for this game on Wednesday. And so if the game on Wednesday goes our way, I think we will be fine with the entire 3-game stretch of at LAFC versus Toronto and versus LAFC. Final thoughts from you.
I feel like we need to come out of this negative quagmire because our team needs us on Wednesday. We need to send good energy all the way to Fort Lauderdale, and it won't help anybody if we're down and out about it and admit defeat even before the ball is kicked off. We're just one goal down. There's all the hope in the world for us to move on to the semifinals. And I like to use your quote, when in adversity, winners win. So we're under the cosh. We have the back against the wall. We just need to show up and do it, man, because that's what champions do. Get behind your team, guys. Now is the time.
Dude, I figured it out. You haven't reminded the guys that they have to take it easy while they go hard. They got to go hard.
Absolutely.
Also
I was saving it for the pregame show on Wednesday. You have to take it easy, but play hard. You know, it's easy. It's so simple.
All right, guys. As always, we will be back tomorrow for a full game breakdown. We'll rewatch the game. We'll go through it minute by minute, talk about the big moments, talk about how the game played out, talk some tactics, and we'll give out awards as always. Please join us. But until then, hope you guys have a wonderful night, and I hope you overcome the sadness that this game caused. Inter Miami has given us so many great moments this year that it would be a shame to get too down because there was a poor game versus Toronto. Again, thank you so much for being here. This show is all about you guys and how you guys are feeling. So we appreciate you giving that to us in the chat. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.